Hello, hello. We are back for another episode of Sister Brunch. I'm Fanshin Cox.
And I'm Anya Adams. Welcome, everybody.
Yes, and here we are.
We're here to talk about Black women plus working in media, entertainment, and the arts. We talked to them about how they broke into the arts, how they stay in the arts, how they stay sane in the arts, knowing that this industry is very, very hard to break into.
Absolutely. So prepare yourselves for some really candid stories and moving stories. And if you are also trying to figure out how to be a part of the industry, our guests can lead you in that direction too. So hang out with us for another hour and a half, because that's how much time Chris gives us.
Also known as 45 minutes.
Okay, so I'm so excited about our guest today, because I will admit we've had a couple coffees or more than that together.
She also
and
has like the coolest name.
Elon Washington.
What?
Like, come on, we got to get into that.
You're writing books, screenplays.
I'm telling you,
name
it's like
is
the
in
name
lights.
is yes. And she's a screenwriter. She's a community organizer. She's got passion for providing visibility to underrepresented voices. She studied English film and media at the University of Florida, film and television at Savannah College of Art and Design.
Ooh, that's a good place to go.
Yes. And she got her MFA in screenwriting from the New York Film Academy.
She's also the founder of the Black Film Allegiance, which we're going to talk more about.
Yes, definitely.
It's a virtual platform promoting collaboration and creative opportunity for up-and-coming filmmakers. She also works for a little unknown company called Monkeypaw.
Never heard of
run
that.
by an actor, I guess. His name's Jordan Peele. I've never heard of him.
Okay,
So
yes.
you can tell us a little bit more about that.
Yes.
She's a development manager there, where she addresses current and upcoming projects. So that's really effing cool.
Yeah, welcome, Elon.
Thank you so much for having me.
So glad to have you.
Excited.
So, Elon, what we often do at the beginning of the show is just kind of go back to the beginning. Where were those initial thoughts of eventually being in the industry? How did they come to you?
And development. I mean, is that where you wanted to go?
Right.
Is that a holding, what
I
is
kind of fell into development.
Okay.
Originally, I always just wanted to write, just like you mentioned. And I always wrote poetry. And that's how I fell in love with writing. And I used to do open mic also.
Oh, cool.
And from that, or when I used to perform, I used to go into different personas and be different characters.
Wow.
We love it.
Yeah, and I would just go up there. I wouldn't say that it was my story, because it usually wasn't. It was just something I saw or a friend experienced or whatever. And so that was when I first fell in love with character work and enjoyed getting into that. And I took an elective through the African American Literature program.
Wait, what's that?
Well, at the University of Florida, unfortunately, all the Black classes are still electives, so you have to take them voluntarily.
Okay.
It is to the point, there are majors offered at this point, but at the time it wasn't something that was advertised.
Okay.
I just knew I was in English, just like you mentioned, but while I was in that department, I saw that was an opportunity for me to take and get involved in. So that's when I fell in love with not just film, but like Black film.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that was kind of my early stages of consciousness too.
Yeah.
Because Amy Angiri, shout out, was such an excellent professor, and I learned a lot in that space. So that was when I realized that I could kind of pair some of the passions I have about people of color in general, but also my own community as a Black woman, and put that in my art. So that's when I first fell in love with it. But I kind of fell into development. I always did internships, and I lived in Atlanta for a bit when I went to Savannah College of Art and Design, because I went to that campus first, and I did some internships there that I really enjoyed. I actually originally went there because I was supposed to be working on a reality TV show that got canceled. And so after that, I was like, okay, here's the thing. I'm going to always need a backup plan. Now, that was a very important experience for me to learn from and grow from. And so it kind of angled how I chose to go about approaching LA. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, at least in Atlanta, I was in closer proximity to home. But being out here, I was like, oh no, I'm definitely going to have to use school again probably to find my way out here. So that's what I did. Mm-hmm. And so I left that program and went to the New York Film Academy, and I did more internships there. And from interning is how I ended up on the production side, and that's how I just landed in development. So being at Monkeypaw, they're so kind and gracious with the way that they allow us to both do our creative aspects and work there.
Yeah.
So I didn't feel like I had to sacrifice anything.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's how I ended up on the production
Wow.
side.
That's awesome.
How did you find the transition from being, being in that elective course where you were able to start to really learn about Black films and, Black storytelling, and then go to like New York Film Academy where that may not have been encouraged?
Oh my gosh, yes. I feel like all my life I had to fight.
Yeah.
It was just all different forms of battles, just in terms of lack of representation. Once I knew that other aspects existed, or how long we've been in the game even, I was upset that I didn't know sooner. I was even hurt that I didn't know sooner, because I felt like it was almost just a disrespect to everyone that came before me, and I felt it should have been also my personal responsibility to look, but I just never knew to ask because I was never taught. So from that, it made me want to enlighten others and tell people. And so that was kind of how it became a connecting point for me. And I was like, okay, what better way to do it than through entertainment?
Yes. And so then talk about Black Film Allegiance. How did that, what were the seeds that sparked you to do that?
So because I moved around so much, it was really important to me that I did, share some information I'd learned moving from place to place and trying and failing with different aspects I was trying to go through, like the reality show that I thought, okay, great, this isn't so bad at all, this is easy. Then it was canceled. So those realities, I thought it was important to share with other people, or what that experience was like, or what it's like being a PA, what's the real experience, because it sounds good, but it's a lot of work. So people that don't have any access, that's what I wanted to create. So I started the platform. It's live on Instagram. That's the primary space that we feature people.
Right.
But I realized at this point, people are less likely to pull out a business card and more likely to just show you their Instagram and then add your name in. So I was like, this is the best space to do it, because this is what people are looking at. Yep. So with it, I decided to feature different Black creatives, highlight what their crew interests are, what their genre interests are, and who inspires them, so that other people with similar interests would reach out to them and they could collaborate and start basically their own tribe, especially for transplants, but also for people that already live here that maybe weren't already in the industry and want to switch up, or maybe they were in the production company side as execs and want to switch to the creative. So it's been a mix of different types of people, from emerging artists to, like I said, people that just are trying to start over. So it's been great.
Did you say crew as well, meaning like makeup, hair, wardrobe, all that kind of stuff?
Absolutely.
Because I hear that that like Black people in crew don't really exist. Like there aren't really any.
I've heard that.
Haven't we heard?
I feel
like that's a refrain on this.
Like
we don't right. We can't find them anywhere. You keep telling us we have to hire them, but where are we supposed to find them?
Exactly. So answering that question is definitely a huge reason why I wanted to do that as well, because I know they exist. I've met them, and it was just a matter of them gaining that visibility, and I think that's constantly something that we all seek to help with that mission.
This is Sister Brunch with Fanchon Cox and Anya Adams. We are just going to take a quick music break, but listen, hang out, because we will be right back. Join our community. You can join us on Twitter at Sister Brunch and also on Instagram at Sister Brunch Podcast.
I'm Anya Adams.
And I'm Fanchon Cox.
Now back to our interview with Elon Washington, the woman with the coolest name in Hollywood. It sounds like you have, you created this Black Film Allegiance to fill a huge need, and it sounds like it's really picking up speed. You work in development because you kind of fell into it, and you like to write. So I feel like, because we talk to a lot of people who have found their dream and are on their way here, and I feel like you're kind of in this middle part of your career. Where are you going? What is your ultimate goal now that you're embedded in the industry? You've got these great contacts, you're doing this amazing stuff for young Black emerging filmmakers and creators, but what's going on with you? What do you want to be?
You're 100% right. I think about that a lot too, and I feel like my true passion is in serving community, and so I would love for that to be my full-time gig, and for writing to be something that I do in addition to that. Okay. And so my ideal life would be full-time doing Black Film Allegiance and then writing scripts and sharing them with other people in that type of way.
So you've got the writing, which is so strong. You've got this work that you're doing. And then you also work for a company that everybody's trying to be part of.
That's so funny.
So I'm also so talk about what it's like to work at Monkeypaw. And actually for our listeners, tell us a little more about Monkeypaw and then what it's like to work there.
For sure. So the interesting thing about my my experience there is that they pretty much raised me
Oh,
because
wow.
that was my first job. So I started there as an intern really right after I graduated. And
how did you get that? Sorry, because I think
Yeah,
people
yeah.
will
Oh,
want to
yeah,
know.
yeah.
What do you mean you got to Monkeypaw just after graduating? How'd you do that?
So before that, I was at the Mission Entertainment. Great people over there.
Yes.
And Trevor Wall told me to be specific in my interest and my goals. And
Very important.
Yes.
very important.
Yes.
And so he said, who would you most like to meet, work for? Who are you inspired by? Who would be that singular person if you had to name them? And I said Jordan Peele. And so he said, okay, I know somebody over there that's an assistant, and so I'll connect you guys, and you guys could get lunch or something. So I said, okay, cool, thank you. So I was supposed to meet up with Brittany Klesick, good friend now, and it was supposed to be a lunch meeting, but she was really busy that day, so I had to come into the office. So she was like, do you mind coming in? I'm like,
Not at
absolutely.
all.
So I came in, and there were 2 interns there at the time, and I was kind of looking at them like, I didn't know you guys had interns. Fascinating. But I met with her, and she just kind of gave an opportunity to ask whatever questions I wanted, and she asked what I was doing in school and about my scripts, and she was into it because they're a genre company, but my sensibilities aligned with hers and what she felt was a lot of other people's there. So I was like, oh, okay, cool. But I was like, well, since I'm here, what are they? What's their position up there? What do they do?
What
those
are they
interns?
up
Yeah,
to
what's that
and-
all about? And she was like, "Is that something you'd be interested in?" And I was like, "Absolutely."
Yeah.
And it just happened to be at the time they were both getting promoted, and
Oh,
so they
wow.
were looking for new interns, but it wasn't something that was advertised or anything. It was just a blessing, and worked out that I just happened to be there and ask. And so it was just a series of events that happened back to back to back where I told her I was interested, but they don't usually, or at the time didn't usually include graduated people or that had already finished. And so I was done. So I was like, well, she was going to put in a good word for me, and we're like, we'll see where this goes. And so maybe a couple weeks later, I followed up, and she was like, oh, hey, yeah, definitely. And then just continued the next stages of the internship process and interviewed me.
Yes.
And it was brand new when I got there, half the size from what it is now. And so I got to grow with it. So
That's
like while they were
exciting.
raising me,
Amazing.
it's like we were growing together.
Yeah.
So it's a very familial environment. So I'll be with them, till the wheels fall off.
Yeah.
In this, but,
And you mentioned that Monkeypaw is a genre,
Right.
very genre-based. So
right.
let's-
So about the company. So yes, always a genre focus. There aren't enough people of color in those spaces,
Yeah.
and we're still striving to push that needle forward. And so yeah, genre is always a focus. Pretty much.
And describe what genre mean. Like, what do you mean by genre?
So sci-fi, horror, pretty much anything except for straight dramedy and drama or comedy. We do like genre bending aspects as well. So if it has elements of something, or if it's like a social thriller that's elevated in that sense, then it's also very on brand for us. So also obviously social consciousness is a big component of the company as well, tied with also a focus on underrepresented voices, which is always something that's important both on screen and behind screen. And because there are serious components of our properties that deal with social messages, it's also important to have a sense of fun and timelessness, because it's that rewatchability that Jordan really appreciates and loves. And I think that's why many people were saying, I saw Get Out 6 times. I'm like, me too.
Yeah.
So yeah, that pretty much.
It's so interesting, too, that genre is so important. I was thinking about this because I was looking at the slate of Marvel superheroes that are on television, and they're all white.
Yeah, name it.
And then I was like, this is really perpetuating the white savior.
Right.
Like,
Right.
That's
you
so
know,
true.
the white savior moniker
Right.
that, we're trying to get out of. And in these genre spaces, that's where we should be bending ideas and
Of
thoughts and
course.
things. And so to be looking at all of these white heroes coming in that have black or brown, sidekicks, we're just mimicking this thing that we're trying to break down.
Even
can't
within
even
genre,
speak English,
right?
but
Like we can't, not
Yes.
even within something that is full on, not supposed to be of our
Right.
current
Yes.
world. We can't
It's
even
like,
see that. We
why?
don't even exist in that.
Right.
Yeah.
And when we do it, it's just not great, which is so unfortunate. It's just like it gets affected because there's so many white voices that have thoughts and feelings about how these black genres should look, and that's very white focused. So it's really exciting that you guys are doing that, but you must be battling that a bit too when you're trying to roll out these stories.
Because Jordan likes to be subversive with the way that he goes about creating, we like to be aware of those things so that we can flip them. And that was one of the most interesting things I found about something like Get Out, where it's like, we know that there has to be a white savior role.
Right.
So to flip that makes it even more unexpected and elevates the conversation.
Yeah.
So, I agree with you. And if more people are at least having the conversations and aware of it, I think that at least there could be change in that sense.
Yeah,
for sure.
yeah.
And we've also talked about, and this is true with Watchmen, who we've all said we love this show, and at the same time, it's very rooted in our trauma and our pain.
sure.
And so that's another thing. I'm sorry to keep plugging your writing, but you have hero characters, right, that are that represent an experience and a time period that we don't even. Most of us don't even know that we existed in, and then these are heroes, and there's still pain. I'm not saying we can't address that, but that these are also representative of heroes of those stories, I think is so important.
And important for us now to start really highlighting people of color as heroes, not victims who survived some horrible thing and got pulled out of this and stood strong in the end, but in fact led
Born
the charge.
heroes.
Were born heroes and died as heroes, and
we deserve joy.
Yeah.
And that's something that I want people to focus on more, like especially in conversation about the constant police brutality or slavery narratives. It's not that they're not important, because they matter, but we deserve to have a full experience of entertainment just like any other viewer without having to brace ourselves for something triggering. So I completely agree.
Yeah. This is Sister Brunch with Fanchon Cox and Anya Adams. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back in a moment.
It's Sister Brunch with Anya Adams and Fanchon Cox. Now back to our interview. Can you talk about barriers either at work or outside of work? What are the things? And I guess I am going back to the struggle story, but
it is
to kind of address
it's pertinent in terms of young Black women,
yes,
men,
for sure.
all of us trying to kind of come up into this industry and the shit we're gonna run into, because
absolutely.
we're gonna run into it.
I never shy away from talking about that, just because I hope that knowing kind of the truth or full spectrum of a conversation can be helpful to other people. And I feel like it's the same thing that we have to experience anywhere, and it's just that in any space where there's a diversity of perspectives and social viewpoints and even identities, you have to do some teaching. And I think that in every space I've been in, that's the most taxing aspect, because you find yourself expressing why something matters, and you wonder at the end of the day why you're so tired, and it's because I've been teaching, and teaching is exhausting.
for free at that.
That was such a mature way to put it.
It's so perfect. So how do you deal with that, and how do you keep going, and what's your self-care and all of that?
I've learned to be selective. There
with
are certain
people you teach.
With moments that I choose to teach,
Copy.
because there are certain things that matter more than others in terms of the stakes. If I know that other people that look like me and feel like me will be at a disadvantage if I don't speak up, or if they'll have to suffer through a triggering experience or whatever through cinema or whatever it is I'm giving notes on, even if it is someone that is just a creative asking me for advice, it doesn't really matter who it is for any category. I have to speak truth on that, because if I don't, then the audience will have to suffer through that experience, and it could have been avoided. And I feel like it would be partially my responsibility if I allowed that to happen. So during those times, I will always say something, but during something more passive, I try to use not social commentary, but whatever's going on in pop culture is an opportunity for conversation. So during those I don't want to say arguments, but intellectual debates, that's when I'll choose to be selective. Because when they just say, I'll let you have that.
Yeah.
Or like, this matters because you need to see why this matters here so that you can get it over there.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
need you to understand fully as a reference point, especially when addressing allies and fully understanding what that means and what you have to understand, both in terms of the content itself, but also the audience. Understanding the audience matters so much.
Yeah.
And not just if you're someone on the marketing side. No, it matters at every stage because you have to think about how people will receive what you're saying. And I think there's an inherent misunderstanding sometimes in what we need and how we feel. And I don't know where it gets lost in translation, but that's the part that I always get exhausted teaching because I have to say it again and again and again. Similar to what we were talking about with the negativity or the torture porn conversation is something that comes up a lot, or how much is too much. It's like, okay, but this is true and this is happening, yes, but it's like we also have to see this on the news every day. How much is too much? When can we stop saying this and talk about something else?
Right.
So yeah, I've just learned to be selective with my piece.
Okay.
And not allowing a situation to have power to remove that. But I'd be lying if I said it was an easy thing to do every day, because there's sometimes we just want to go home and just veg out. But
what does your veg out look like?
It looks like watching old shows that I know that I've enjoyed.
Yeah.
But I won't have to analyze them or think about something being problematic. It
Like
means
what?
Watching,
I'm out of
like,
curiosity.
I love Martin.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And also, that was in Detroit, or the show was supposed to be in Detroit. So it's like, and Sister also same thing. But anything that felt familial and comfortable growing up, it's nice to go back to that. 'Cause it's like, hey, not only are you not alone, but this is what you're fighting for.
Yeah.
So it makes me feel good to return to that.
Yeah, and to have reminders that there, like you said, fighting for, and there are folks who came before us, right? Like we
Exactly.
do have examples to point to where we were telling our stories. And at that time, the writers' rooms were not all black, or even maybe not one person, but more and more people are understanding that that's what it needs to look like too. And so there's some hope there.
Exactly. That if they could do it, then, I could at least do my best.
No doubt.
From the specific place of being, at a production company and also wearing all the hats that we discussed, I see why certain things have to happen, but I think that also sometimes people are complicit with decisions that aren't necessarily pushing us forward. And I think about that a lot when people are evaluating content, and like I was saying with what's okay to show, or there were a lot of Queen and Slim conversations, for instance, where just it's interesting to know, and I like to see where people stand on different things because it's educational. Whenever there's any major black film, it's important to hear what people have to say about it. But then after a while, I just have to kind of not listen to them anymore, because it's not always about what we enjoy and what we appreciate. Sometimes people are evaluating something just based off of what they think looked good, or justifying moments that they didn't personally even connect with just because they feel they should. We're at a weird space right now where people want to be more actively involved in art and in depictions of self, but they don't know how to articulate it. I think seeing people's difficulty in navigating that makes me really frustrated, because I want to be more helpful than I feel like I can.
Yeah.
That's really interesting that you say that, because, and this is Chris here for people listening. I know that a lot of people, talking about Queen and Slim, a lot of people have had difficulty in terms of being able to critique it. And you may not feel comfortable about talking about that. I suspect you will be. But I found it very interesting that people really struggled with honestly critiquing the movie. And so out of that, I know in journalism circles, there has been this conversation about how do we critique black film? How do we critique black art, which is what you're talking about, right? I would love to get your sense of where do we go from here? What do you think we need to do as someone who thinks about this all the time?
Yes. So
Great question, Chris.
Thank you.
You should host a podcast.
The reason why it frustrates me, or with why I mention that, is because I feel like we've become accustomed to suffering through a cinematic experience. And it's because...
Wait. What?
That's what she said, man.
Yeah. And it's because we're all teaching. The same way I said that I have to teach every day, we all are. So I think that over time we've subconsciously started shifting our perspective who the audience is, and rather they say it's for us or not, it is for the white audience.
Right.
Because they're constantly trying to show this is what the experience is like, this is why we matter, this is our humanity, when we really should be just
doing
Just
our
for
own
ourselves.
stories.
It's the
And
white gaze.
So then,
It's the white gaze.
so then my follow-up is this: if we are teaching and we really, even though we think we're creating art for ourselves, but we're not, right? What is holding us back from having these honest conversations in public spaces? Do you know what I mean? Like,
We
I
can
wanted
have
to like
that
drill down.
conversation.
Let's get
even
to it.
for this, and I've thought about this a lot too, it's because we're afraid that we'll run out of chances. We're always constantly in fear of the door closing, and we don't want to ruin someone else's opportunity just because we have critiques. I feel like other people have the privilege of saying, I appreciated this, I didn't like that, or just saying flat out, this wasn't for me and I couldn't stand it, without people saying, oh, that's why we're not investing in this film, because their own community didn't like it, so why would we trust them doing X, Y, Z?
This is Sister Brunch with Fanchon Cox and Anya Adams. We'll be back in a moment.
Did you know what this is? Were you in your head like, what is this? I'm going to tell you. It's Sister Brunch with Anya Adams and Fanchon Cox. Now back to our interview.
I miss the days where you could make a quality hood classic for your people, by your people, and it just be okay, because there are some excellent movies in that category. Paid in Full being one of my favorite. Heck, I loved Baby Boy, but, you can't. Or even in talking about Queen and Slim with certain people, I would talk about, people are always approximating it to Bonnie and Clyde and Thelma and Louise. But I would talk about, remember Set It Off, where they had the ability to have agency over how they went about doing certain things or what their outcome was. They went out fighting. So the fact that other people don't know what that is, it's kind of like the debate between PWIs and HBCUs, where it's like, maybe we should have just never integrated, because once we started doing that, we started changing who we were, how we presented based off of that other perception. So my interest would be for it to return back to that other space, not in ignoring the presence of that other audience, because it's important to keep that in mind, but just to think about, what would you like to see? What are the people like in your actual communities, as opposed to, this is what I think blackness looks like? Because that's the same mentality that people of other races are using to depict us, and it's just not accurate, even in terms of stereotyping ourselves.
Don't you think the thing about blackness is it's so diverse.
Right.
Exactly.
We're not a monolith.
Pulling it out of, it is connected to whiteness in some senses. So, like creating a bubble again, I'm not sure if that, like, for me, it's not resonating, but I would love to hear more about that,
Not to create a bubble of exclusion, because I do feel like the platform is power, but to the point where we think about it like, let's make what we enjoy, not what we think.
Without the white gaze,
Yeah.
right? So
I hear that.
The freedom of just telling the story.
But I don't think that Lena and Melina were like, let's make this for white people. I think they truly feel like they created a movie about the black experience for black people.
You mean if you asked them, they would tell you.
I think that is like, now, are they motivated by unconscious bias and things that happened in their life that may have come through? But I don't know that they were like, we're going to make this so that white people feel something for black people.
Having read a lot of the interviews too, that was kind of what my take was with why I say that, because even one thing that went viral on Black Twitter was like Lena approximating her and Melina to whiteness by saying Melina's mixed, and that Lena doesn't just like black films, she's also inspired by white films too, so it somehow created a different form of
that's not helpful.
So
right.
who is she saying that to? Why
and
was it showed?
why was that
you know
needed?
What I mean?
Yeah,
like,
okay.
Yes.
But also, who is she to say that's a unique experience? Because we've all kind of been forced to have inspirations that don't look like us.
And I wonder also, because Elon and I are both in development, that I can tell you there's not a story told that doesn't have to right now include the white gaze.
Yeah.
That doesn't have to.
Right. Even if it's the blackest, like and you want to pitch it that way, and because Lena's still not the ultimate decider.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? There is still the money has to come, and the money is coming from whiteness still very, very much. And so I mean, I was going to say if you all saw My Name is Dolomite, because I thought that is a great example of, well, at least the original Dolomite for sure was like, I'm just making this damn movie. And it was like, I'm going to take everybody that I know and make this movie. And I thought they did a nice job of like, that one, I didn't see a lot of white gaze in watching us. Yeah.
I still feel like, just like what you're saying, though, that it can be done successfully and still get acknowledgement. Because, I mean, with Moonlight, for instance, to me, that's an example of doing something that is authentic to the story, characters, and people, not even considering how to be received by other people. Because I'm sure that they didn't do that thinking, oh, wow, we're going to win something, because it just has not been the case in the past.
We talked about the importance of joy, right? And we've now talked about the barriers, but what is joyful about your job?
I think what's joyful about it is getting the opportunity to connect other people to their space of opportunity. So, but I guess very similar to what I do with Black Film Legions, I like being able to give people sort of, not insider information, but just the knowledge that things are more accessible than they realize. Because on our end, people are constantly looking, oh, we need a woman of color in this space. Oh, we need that, da, 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 da. But it's like on the creative end, they're just hearing, oh, you just get in however you can. Festivals get spotted, selected. But it's actually, if you just meet people, network, you're just one person away from anybody. So I kind of like that. Or my favorite part is that by being in that space, I've had a different understanding of what that journey is like in terms of how things are made, and it's allowed me to be encouraging to other people. So that's my favorite part, is to be able to give some type of hope in the, because I know how much work goes into developing a project when something's your baby. So just to be able to say, look, I can absolutely get eyes on something, like it feels good to be able to help in any type of way.
So if we don't have a lot of examples to point to, and we have joy via our jobs by helping other people tell their stories, how do we navigate the conversations with those folks who aren't where they want to be, or we can help them get there, of both saying there's not a lot out there for you to point to, but please tell your story? Like, where are the examples for them?
That goes back to what we were saying about just being authentic to yourself. I think that so often people are doing what they think sells instead of what's true to them. And so part of it is just telling people to do what they know, not in a way that's restrictive, because you can always research something, just like what we're talking about with period pieces or with something of that nature. But just to think out of the box in that sense instead of just doing what you've seen. I think a lot of times at work people say, oh, I've got the gay version of Get Out. But it's like, okay, well, if a company's already done a particular property, they're not trying to do it again. So what's the next thing? What's the new story that you're interested in? So I think it's partially that for sure.
We talk about that a lot around your authentic voice, like especially for writers, right? You have to start from your voice. May I share a little bit about your screenplay?
Oh,
because I think it speaks to, and I won't give too much away, but it is about religion. And that's something that I think we don't have, especially kind of in a mainstream accessible way to Black folks. And I'll say it's also about Moors.
I love research, just for me personally. So even if I don't super know something, I'll figure it out and I'll go put myself in spaces where I can know more, no matter what the category is. And that's something that, I for sure encourage other people to do that too. Even if they're doing something about music and you're not in that space, go to some shows, talk to some people. I think that's important because you can tell the difference between when someone's done that research and when they haven't in the pages. So, that was a large part of my experience with that. Or also just thinking about the core of what matters for something. People talk a lot about high concept works and pitches and doing the next zippy thing. But really, for me, high concept isn't just approximating something to a property that's already out. Like, they like to say this meets that. And it's not just that. It's also saying, like, what if, like you were saying, what if in the history of the development of religion, Black Muslims were in power and Christians were exiled? And that's something that actually happened. So that's the type of core root for story that I both look for on the development side, but also that I like to create with. And I think that when people do something that's specific, I think specificity is kind of the theme of this, but also with intentionality, because it can't be a coincidence that you just pepper this person. And that's the issue with when people try to do stuff that's diverse, is they just like, oh, one of this, one of that.
Right.
No, like, why? There's got to be a specific reason with why all these people are in this space, and how does that translate to what we're dealing with today? How can this help people and advance us forward? So those are all the things that matter to me a lot.
So tips, we want some tips, because you've already given us so many, but if you had to kind of consolidate your for these amazing folks that you're helping to nurture, what are some tips that
navigating or coming into this industry?
For people that want to be writer-directors, these festival spaces are extremely important. I feel like people are looking at them now more than ever, it seems like. And I think that by having something unique in those spaces and having a focus on story, that's how you get noticed, because a lot of things look beautiful, but do you have something to say? I think fine-tuning what your personal lens is and point of view is how to advance, because that's how you maintain not just a level of seniority, to be frank, over the other films in those spaces, because you know how it is when you're watching a whole bunch of short films back to back, it becomes a blur after a while, but you stand out when you have something to say, and people will remember you and pass your name along, and it happens just like that. It's easier than people realize. I don't want to oversimplify it, but getting in the room is at least easier than people realize. And I think if people hone into those aspects of their craft as it relates to their voice, then that'll make all the difference.
Thank you so much, Elon Washington, for coming.
Of course.
This wonderful writer, community organizer, development manager.
Everything.
Working at Monkeypaw with that guy. And also the founder of Black Film Allegiance. Go check that out on Insta.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's www.bfallegiance.com. And then on Instagram...
It's BF Allegiance again.
Oh, BF Allegiance. Okay, on Instagram too.
Like it.
Follow it, support it, send your stuff in so that you can be highlighted.
For sure.
Yes.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey there, this is Christabel Insiebwadi, the executive producer of Sister Brunch. You will have heard me weighing in on the conversation. I hope you enjoyed the show. Visit our website, we're at sisterbrunch.com, and join our community of creators. We're on Twitter at sisterbrunch, on Instagram at sisterbrunchpodcast, and we're on Facebook at facebook.com/sisterbrunchpodcast. Be sure to subscribe and rate our show wherever you get your podcasts. We'll see you next time.